Hello and welcome to another edition of Football Express. I'm Stephen Looney. Joining me in the studio today are Glenn Ferguson and Mark McIntosh. Both very welcome as ever. Now, we're talking local football and we'll start with last weekend's results. And it was the Clearwater Irish Cup semi-finals. Friday, March 28th, Cliftonville 3, Ards 0. Saturday, March 29th, Bangor 0, Dungannon Swifts 2. Then during the week there, Tuesday night, Sports Direct Premiership. Full programme. Dungannon Swifts 1, Larne 1, Glentoran 2, Coleraine 1, Linfield 3, Crusaders 1, Ballymena United 5, Loughgall 2, Carrick Rangers 1, Cliftonville 3 and Portadown 1, Glenavon 1. Looking ahead to the weekend, again Sports Direct Premiership, Saturday, April 5th. Linfield versus Glentoran, Coleraine versus Dungannon Swifts, Crusaders versus Larne, Carrick against Portadown, Cliftonville versus Ballymena United, Glenavon against Loughgall. Glenn, we'll start with the Cup. I think we'll look back and get your thoughts on the final. I have it down here. Both teams played championship opposition. I don't think Ards or Bangor did themselves full justice, really. They were a bit flat, I think. Fell short. So Joe Gormley scored. Alex Parsons ran Corrigan against Ards. Kyle Owen scored an unfortunate own goal, and Dean Curry sealed it for the Swifts against Bangor. What did we learn about from the semi-finals in terms of who's going to actually win the Cup when it's played in May the 3rd?
I watched both games. I watched the Cliftonville game on TV, and then I was at the Bangor Dungannon game. I think Cliftonville, first and foremost, showed their gulf in class between themselves and Ards. I think at one stage you could have threw another ball on for Ards just to get a touch of it, because Cliftonville were that good in keeping the ball. Their retention of the ball was good, and then creating opportunities were great. I thought their big players came to the fore. I thought Johnny Ennis was superb. I thought Rory Hale was superb, and Joe Gormley, listen, was Joe. You know, he created chances, his touch was good, his movement was good. He scored a goal, set one up, and obviously then he's tried to dink the keeper as well, which was very unfortunate. So I think the gulf in class between those two teams was very much evident, and Cliftonville thoroughly deserved to get to the final. On the Saturday game, I sort of thought that Bangor would put up a better challenge, but I think the wind in the second half in particular ruined the game. 20 minutes in, I think if Bangor had scored a goal, they could have pushed on and give Dungannon something to think about. Dean Curry's goals obviously went and sealed the game for them. But no, it was a really tough afternoon for Bangor. Conditions were poor, and Dungannon were better on the ball. There's no doubt. So again, they're gulf in class in terms of technical ability. But I thought Bangor, could have and should have possibly created more chances with the win when they had it. Unfortunate, but I think over the course of it, the best two teams won and deservedly made the final.
Just while we have you there, Glenn, I mean, I was covering the game myself at Seaview. First of all, the wind was a factor, obviously, and I couldn't understand why the keepers were sort of kicking it high. Maybe you wanted a bit lower, a 3 wood instead of a 7 iron, I don't know. But I thought both teams, both Bangor and Dungannon, lacked conviction in front of goal. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that could well be the difference in the final. I think if Cliftonville's top players come to the party, your Joe Gormleys, your Rand Currans, Parsons, Rory Hale, Cliftonville will win it, because I think in the final third they've got a bigger threat. Andy Mitchell on his day can be a handful, can be a threat, but I think over the course of it, Cliftonville have got better players in the final third, and if they play to their potential, I can only see one winner come the final.
Thanks, Glenn. Mark, again, we had no surprises there, the weekend's results in terms of the semi-finals. What do you make? Did we learn anything looking ahead to the final?
Basically what Glenn said there. I think Cliftonville's firepower is frightening, and Joe Gormley gets written off every summer, it seems. And that was one of the best performances I've seen from him in years. Everything about his game, as you rightly said, he held the ball up. His work rate was unbelievable, his touch was good, creating goals, scoring goals, and if he'd have scored that dink, it probably would have been one of the best goals of his career. Just an incredible performance. But I don't think we learned anything in terms of what they did against championship clubs. The second that the Cliftonville Ards game was going to be at Windsor, I feared for Ards. A huge pitch. I don't think was ever going to help them. I think Cliftonville were in control from the start. They managed the game very well. And what they actually did, while Ards didn't have much of an attacking threat, they started to build a wee bit of momentum just before Cliftonville scored the second goal, and that just killed everything. The Saturday game, Bangor kind of huffed and puffed a bit second half, and they threatened it, like they were threatening to threaten, if you know what I mean. But it just never really, you never were convinced that they were going to come back into the game. My only fear for Dungannon, and look, they've been brilliant, they've been my favourite team to watch this season. I love what Gail Bigger-Amana does in the centre of the park as well. But just Cliftonville look like they're going to score goals from anywhere. They can score goals in the back as well. And if I were Cliftonville, I'd be very confident.
When you look back at the Bangor game, you look at the players that are missing. The goalkeeper, Patrick Solis, he was very, very good so far this season. Since he's come in, he's been good. But the experience and the energy in the midfield, Robbie Garrett has been unbelievable. His experience is invaluable. Tiernan Mulvena, his energy getting about the park, and obviously Matthew was missing as well. So there's 4 players who would usually play in around Bangor, definitely starters, threats in the final third who weren't there. So maybe that affected Bangor as well. But they had enough on the day to they should have done better than what they done.
Matthew wasn't well?
No, he had taken a bout of pneumonia and he was coughing up some blood and stuff, so he was on antibiotics and he had to just lie low for a bit. So thankfully he's on the mend now and back in the squad again. We
wish him well. Just looking at, there's lots of intrigue, I think, about the final, Dungannon against Cliftonville. If Cliftonville won it to defend the crown successfully, if Dungannon won, it's the first time in their history. And I think it's a very, very attractive fixture on paper. We've said that before about cup finals and damn squibs. Now, I'm like yourself, Mark. I like Dungannon Swifts. I've said it on the show before. Actually, in January, said I think they're my dark horses for the cup. But looking at it, I think, if it was a league game, I'd maybe fancy Dungannon, if you know what I mean, because I do like their team. I think they have a very, very good team, a great group. But Cliftonville have big game experience. They've been there and done it. Won the cup last year, won the League Cup. Joe Gormley Renaissance this year, unbelievable. But it's very tight. I think it could go either way. I said there it would be Dungannon's first Irish Cup success. I think they were in the cup final in 2007 against yourself, and Rodney was playing. He was captain actually, and they had a very, very good team back then. It's something I'm going to ask Rodney about at the end of the season. Which team's better, that one back there, or this one this season? I suppose a lot of them depends on the cup, I suppose. I asked him earlier on the season. He said about these boys. He says they're close. They're close. What was the 2007 cup final like?
Yeah, well, listen, there's no secret. We had a good team then as well. We had just come off 2006 clean sweep squad. So 2007 squad hadn't changed that much. We went into that final being massive favourites. And to be fair, Dungannon should have beat us on the day. They really raised their game. They had players of quality. I think Rory Hamill, Mark McAllister, really good players in their team. Rodney, as you alluded to, Dwayne Nelson on goals. And they arguably could have beat us on the day. So going into this game, Cliftonville, yes, might have the experience, might have the better players, might have the more strike power. Dungannon won't be in this game. There's no doubt about it. They will certainly pose threats. And listen, it's a cup final and anything can happen.
Am I right in thinking that Linfield swooped on 2 or 3 of Dungannon's players after that?
3.
Mark McAllister,
JP Gallagher,
and there was a third.
Possible. Jimmy Tumblety as well.
There's the third, indeed. Yes.
So it shows you how good they were back then. The players they had as well. Plus they had an exceptional manager as well.
Rodney's done well. Now you were talking about managers then. Jim Magilton, skin on the backroom team. Certainly it could be a very, very good season for the Reds as well, Mark.
They'll be disappointed with their league campaign, obviously. But we've said it many times on the show, when they lose 3 strikers and more than 40 goals in the summer, it was always going to be a difficult year. There was going to have to be some form of transition. But if they end the season with the League Cup and the Irish Cup, I think that's a great season. Isn't it just typical of 45 years to wait for an Irish Cup and 2 in a row, it looks like. Incredible. But look, I don't think you can praise Jim Magilton enough for the job he's done. Even coming in, the amount of fans who were totally against him coming in, and Jim, gives off that sort of his big personality, and it doesn't affect him. I'm sure it affected him. Of course it did. It affects everybody, things like that. But he's proven what he can do. I think it'll only get better for Cliftonville as well. I think he's trying to build something again. And he's lost important players during the season as well. Ronan Doherty leaving, I think, was a huge loss to Cliftonville. But it's been seamless in terms of, wanting to win cup competitions. And if they can win the Irish Cup, guarantees Europe, and they don't even have to think about a playoff then.
Thanks, Mark. And we'll go on to league in a moment, but while I've got you here, Glenn, I'm thinking about Joe Gormley. You're right. And I heard myself more than once in recent years, Joe's done. Joe's done. What? He scored his 20th goal of the season on Tuesday night. I want to ask you, because you played, you're 41, was it? No?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right.
I know you can't answer this directly, but how long can Joe go on for? Because I'll be honest with you now, he intimated to me on Tuesday night that he has now revised his thinking. He's going to stay on, or he hopes to stay on.
Well, ultimately, it'll be up to Joe. If Joe keeps himself fit, we all know the qualities he has. His goal scoring is, at this moment in time, in the league, second to none. His all-round play, when you think, I think it was the second goal in the semi-final, the ball came out of the scan, his first touch was class. Turn, ball out wide, ball in the box was a goal. That is someone who makes a difference in a game. And if Joe can keep himself injury-free, adapt this game a little bit, because he's not going to be as young as he was. I was there, not that I was ever quick, but you have to adapt your game to get into wee pockets of space, get on the ball, and know when to make the right runs. And Joe's very, very much capable of doing that. As I say, when it comes to finishing, at this moment in time, there's not anybody who's as good as him. So he could go on for another 3, 4, 5 years if he looks after his body, if Cliftonville play to his strengths. As long as he's not running about like a madman all over the place, he could play for another few years yet and rack up a lot more goals.
He looks fitter this season. His body shape is even different.
But Mark, see, the thing about it is, when you get older, the more you play, the fitter and sharper you stay. As you get older, if you're not playing, if you're on the bench and you're coming on, it does affect your sharpness and your fitness. I've been there. I remember being out of the team for 6 or 7 weeks, and you come in, it takes a while to get back up to where if he's playing week in, week out, he'll stay sharp.
Game time.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we was talking about it, yes, very much so. Thanks, Glenn. Mark, while I have you here, Cliftonville are discussing a buyout proposal from a Canadian group, Toronto Investment Group. There are 4 of them actually. One of them is Conor Devine, who used to play in the Irish League, Dungannon, Cliftonville, DC. He's a financier, lives in North Belfast now. Great fella, Conor. So Cliftonville are on the horns of a dilemma because it's an existential issue for them. They're being sold this. This may be the future, but they have to hand over the keys to the castle. Without getting into too much, because I think by the time this comes out, there may be more news. It's being superseded. There's a meeting tonight, I think. On the face of it, Mark, it's certainly worth looking at, because I'll tell you why. From an outsider, Cliftonville knocked back Alipoor like a years back. Just, no, we're not interested in that. And now they seem to be saying, I'm not saying they're guiding the members to say do this, but they're saying this needs to be looked at favourably.
Yeah, I think back then, Glenavon and Cliftonville both turned down the Alipoor investment. This one seems a bit different. I agree with you, Conor is a great fella as well, and if he's involved in it, if he believes in it, I think there's certainly merit in it. And I think the members of Cliftonville can see that this one is different. And look, the reality is, if Cliftonville, it seems a bit weird saying it if they end up winning the Irish Cup and the League Cup, but if they want to compete, given the money and investment that is around the league now, they're going to have to do something like this. It's a difficult choice. My understanding was at the start, there were a lot of positive signs. I think in the second meeting, it may not have been just as positive. But I think for Cliftonville, if they want to get to where they want to be and where their fans want them to be, they have no choice.
Well, I'll take that on now, Glenn, and ask you, because that's the feedback I'm getting. And quite the same at Linfield, the feedback I'm getting, we're going to be left behind if we don't. Now, here's what I'm thinking, right? We know Coleraine have come in now at the minute as we speak now, they're the big players, right? I think there's more questions than answers. That was the problem at the previous meeting. I was kind of thinking, are Cliftonville's owners going to come in if they buy the club? And are they going to be top of the queue then? Are they going to pay more than Coleraine? Can they do that? So, what I'm saying is they come in all singing, all dancing, but all the top players are still going to Coleraine. Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very difficult one, because we look at Linfield, obviously have been looking at some investment. They've just won the league by 22 points. Cliftonville have won the League Cup. They're in the Irish Cup final, could possibly win that with no investment. So we've seen in the past that the festival came throwing loads and loads of money at it, and it hasn't worked. Yes, it worked at Larne. You know, Larne had a real structure from where they were, come through. They won the league a couple of times, get themselves into Europe, great run in Europe. But now this season it's fallen away again, and possibly could fall away again. You don't know what's going to happen there. But this is where Cliftonville will have to be very careful. It's okay maybe getting millions of pounds of investment and just going out and cherry picking players. You know, the players you bring in have to fit your style of play, has to fit the culture of the club. You know, I always think Cliftonville, the players that they have in their team, it's like a seeds mentality. It really means something to them. You know, Coleraine right now and they're signing reportedly Joel Cooper and Stephen Fallon, again possibly Sule and Lance Foster of Glentoran. Are these players Coleraine players? Or are they just going for the extra money? You know, this is where you got to really put the balancing act in, and I think Jim will be good at that. To be fair, if it ever happens. Because when you watch Cliftonville, I love watching Cliftonville play to a certain extent because there's different ideas, there's set pieces. They obviously think about it and work on it. So if that gives them more time to do it, Cliftonville could be dangerous. But as I say, they're going to have to not just go out and pay money just to get someone that someone else wants. It's got to be players that's going to have to suit the culture of their club, fit into their style of play. You know, I've mentioned it before on numerous occasions about clubs just going out and getting players because they were available and they're good players. They have to be able to fit into the style of play of the club.
The other thing is, I don't think it's just going to be about bringing in big name players and giving them loads of money to come to the club. I think their ideas are more sort of based on improving the club, in terms of infrastructure, everything. And I think that's what they have to look at, because a club like Cliftonville aren't going to be able to do that unless they get all of the 36 million quid. It's going to be so difficult. And I think that's probably where the members have to look at what they're going to do that way, because we've seen before Glentoran threw a lot of money at it, didn't seem to have a plan, and it just simply hasn't worked as of yet. So I don't think Cliftonville would fall into that trap. And it has to be about making the club sustainable in the future at some stage. How you do that in Irish League football, I'm not 100% sure. And with the amount of money involved now, I have concerns. I know you have concerns, Stephen. You probably do as well, on how clubs are going to be able to sustain this. And at the moment, Coleraine have blown everyone out of the water. Now, how does that end? We don't know, because we said that about Larne at the start. They were blowing everybody out of the water, and we probably didn't expect to be where we are now. But I think Cliftonville will have to look at this seriously. And if the current guardians of the club believe this is a good thing, I think we should listen to them.
Fair comment. We wish the Reds members well. I wouldn't like to be a Cliftonville member because it's a real dilemma, and there's a lot of soul searching going on.
I would be very apprehensive as well, being a Coleraine supporter, because obviously they've had difficulties in the past, and I think, Henry Ross, I'm not sure, 24, 25 years of age, like people that age, this could be like a toy, this could be just a project, and some people that age get very bored very quickly and might want to move on to something else. So if there's a lot of money invested into a club, they have to make sure the foundations and structures right to carry that through for the next 5 or 10 years, to pay these contracts that players are being offered. I would be very concerned and making sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted to make sure that's all right as well, which I'm sure they have done.
But that safeguards are going to be in place.
Yeah, the bond system, I'm told, that makes sure. And I don't think, I think there's been a lot of rapid change at Coleraine, and I think there'll be more changes at Coleraine moving forward. In the months ahead. Who knows? We'll have to watch it. It's a project. Great debate, guys. Thanks very much. We want to talk about the league as well a wee bit. We know Linfield won the league and will celebrate it on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in the race for second, Glentoran did themselves a huge favour, I think, by beating Coleraine, as Larne were held by Dungannon. Glens have 57 points, Larne 55, Dungannon 51, Cruise 50 and Coleraine 49. Am I right in thinking, Glenn, that it's a dogfight between Glentoran and Larne for that second place?
Yeah, I would say so. There's not enough games left for teams to pick up enough points. There's going to be twists and turns in all those games, and I can't see any team going out and winning all those games. So I think it's a dogfight between those two, and the pressure will be on. Because if Glentoran, for instance, gets second place and then Larne go into that playoff, we've seen those playoffs before, they're very inconsistent, or you can't pick a winner out of that because they finish third. The team in sixth place may well go on and win it, so it's going to be very difficult. But I would say Glentoran and Larne will certainly be going all out to do everything in their power to get that second place and confirm Europe, but it's not going to be easy.
No, indeed. Mark, I was kind of... Glentoran looked like they were shot. you know, in recent times. You know, they look like they'd gone. I think the defeat to Bangor blew them off course a wee bit, but that was a hell of a result, beating Coleraine, because they've been really, really good form, 5 games unbeaten, 3 wins and 2 draws. So possibly, like, I thought Larne were maybe going to catch Glentoran, but Glentoran seem they've kicked on a little bit. Well, they've got a win, and that gives them a cushion. That could be vital.
Yeah, and it's a wee bit of momentum they can start to build now as well. We talk about that all the time in football. My fear for the Glens in recent times has been their lack of goals, and you know, you couldn't really see where goals were coming from unless Jordan Jenkins scored one out of nothing. And that would still be a concern of mine getting into the last few games. But I watched Larne on Tuesday night, and you know, Andy Ryan was on the bench. You know, they were a little bit toothless. You know, they did a lot of stuff that you expect from Larne, but they didn't carry a massive threat. I didn't see much urgency even in the second half. You were thinking, you know, that's a game they really needed to win, you know, because I don't think any team finishing outside the top 2 is guaranteed anything now, you know, because it's so close and it's not even, but it's as close as you're going to get to it. And I think a lot of clubs would be very concerned if they finish 3rd and below, so they have to go for it. But the Glens, I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Glentoran this season. I think the biggest compliment you can pay Declan Devine and his staff is that they actually look like a team now. Now you can talk about, do they have enough quality in wide areas or in attacking options? Probably not. But they actually look like a team, and I think that will stand them in good stead. The result against Coleraine, I don't think many people saw coming. That could be the big one for them. They'll have that belief now.
I agree with you said there about Declan Devine. You know, he has taken leadership and control of Glentoran team, and they all know exactly what's happening, and the fans are buying into it, so they've got the whole momentum behind the club. I think at Larne there's a bit of disjoint, because from what I'm hearing, people don't know who's in charge, whether it's Gary Havern, whether it's Nathan Rooney, and there's different instructions coming from either side, and players are a wee bit confused, and that has certainly made an effect on their performances, particularly the latter stage of the season here. So I think that's something that Larne are going to have to address very, very soon. I know there's a lot of stuff going on with Nathan Rooney and the pro licence and stuff at the minute, and whether that'll get sorted out, I don't know, but they need to address that very soon and get it sorted so they can get back to where they were.
Thanks, Glenn. As ever in local football, you know, we're talking about Glentoran and Larne going for 2nd place. And there's a spectre of that famous rivalry between Glentoran and Linfield. And I'll tell you what I mean. Linfield versus Glentoran, it's the presentation of the trophy. And when I first heard it, oh, Linfield, you know, because Glentoran, earlier on the season, they were whooping and hollering about beating Linfield, and they were celebrating, and I thought, Linfield, that's... you know, but we were talking to David Healy this week, and he insisted I think Linfield are saying that they had planned to have the presentation the following week, Dungannon Swifts, but there's a NIFL award ceremony on that night, so they had to bring it forward. But to get to the salient point, Mark, I'm not too sure there'll be many Glen men turn up. Like, and Glentoran still need points.
Yeah, and I know what you mean, and I've seen a lot of things on social media, people saying, you know, I'm not going. They will turn up. It's a big 2 game. You know, the Glens are doing well this season. The fans, as Spike has said, the fans have bought into it, what Decky's doing as well. And look, they don't have to stay for the presentation. Like, just because you go to the game, you can leave 5 minutes before the end of the match. You know, you don't have to be there when they lift the trophy. And the players are going to need the fans. I think there'll be more there than you maybe think there will be. But you know, it's.
I don't.
I do. I think we hear about this a lot, and you know, fans not doing things and not going to games. They end up going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we shall see on Saturday. I certainly think numbers. I'm not saying nobody's going to go from East Belfast, but I think numbers will be definitely down. Glenn, what do you think?
Well, you know, I've been in around the club the last couple of days, and we've been asking about, because obviously it's an all-ticket game, and I think at one stage on Tuesday there was 54 tickets sold for the Glentoran end. Whether that changes over the course of the week, yes, with Glentoran winning against Coleraine, you know, they've got a bit of momentum. They'll need their supporters behind them. You know, irrespective, it'll not matter whether Linfield win or not. You know, there's all this joke about, you know, give Glentoran, we beat Linfield 4 times trophy. Linfield are getting the trophy this week. Glentoran still need to win the game to stay in contention for second place. So they'll need all the support and backing that they can get. You know, and listen, Linfield on Tuesday night against Crusaders made a number of changes. and still won comfortably. You know, so if they make changes, there's a good chance Linfield could get a result. You know, because listen, the adrenaline's going to be flowing. They're going to be looking forward to the presentation. Linfield won't want to lose on Saturday. No. There's no doubt about it. So, you know, Glentoran will need a bit of help from somewhere.
Any outstanding memories of presentation days from your glittering career, Glenn?
Listen, I talk to Michael Galt about this all the time when we're in work, and Michael's memory is unbelievably good. He can remember tackles that he's made in matches. I can't even remember scoring goals in cup finals at times, honestly, and that's been totally honest. And it's just, I remember just one day at Windsor, was it Tony Gorman year, so that would have been sort of like 2004, 2005 maybe, and I just remember us all going in the change room and shaving everybody's hair and painting their hair blue, you know, going out to get the trophy presentation, you know. But listen, been there a few times, but they're all good to me no matter what it is. Doesn't matter if it's against Glentoran, you know, it's you're winning the league title.
Hats off to Linfield for sure. Okay, we've covered a lot of stuff. Matters at the bottom of the table now. With the results there on Tuesday night, Loughgall they're doomed in my opinion. I think they're 9 points behind Carrick, and Carrick cannot catch Glenavon now, so they are in the relegation playoff or Premiership playoff spot at best. It'll take a miracle for Loughgall to avoid the drop. Now, Darren Murphy, we know well, good guy. He has taken over as manager. He's succeeding Dean Smith. What do you think? I mean, like, they're obviously, you'd have to think Loughgall planning for the future, you know, and the future being Championship next year, Mark. That's not unfair on them? No,
listen, I spent a bit of time with Murph at the start of the week, and he knows that he has to have one eye on next season and the Championship. Look, as you rightly said, it'll take a miracle for them to get out of that situation. Murph getting in there, you know, it's a big decision to take that job. I think the Finn Harps job was one he really liked. But the fact that it's a full-time role for him, you know, he's going to oversee a lot of things in terms of, you know, underage teams and girls football as well. So I think it's a big gig for him. But it's been a shocking season for Loughgall, let's be honest. You know, they massively overachieved last year, which maybe gave people false hope. It's been a difficult year, and there's just no chance they're going to win the games that they need to between now and the end of the season to get out of it and get themselves into that playoff. But likewise with Carrick, you know, I'd be a wee bit concerned for Carrick even in a playoff. You know, the upturn in fortunes that I expected when Stephen Baxter came in hasn't really materialised. You know, you always get that sort of initial bounce, but there hasn't been too much since then. And that would be a big concern. Now, we've said that a lot of times down the years, haven't we, about, you know, the playoff going to be really close, and a lot of times it's not. It does favour the Premiership team, but I think this year, with the Championship being so competitive as well, I think it could be a really intriguing playoff.
Thanks, Mark. I'm going to come to you about the Championship teams and the potential playoff in a moment, Glenn, because I know you know that with Matthew playing for Bangor. I know you know that scene well. But let's talk about Loughgall a wee minute, because, as Mark says, it's been a very difficult season, a horrible season for them. Loughgall praised roundly last year. A great thing that Dean Smith, he got out of the Championship. He kept faith in the squad. You know, and that togetherness carried him a long way last year. He's lost two of his goal scorers, Benji McGee and Nathaniel Ferris. And I think sometimes maybe it was just time for a change. And so much as that's no reflection on Dean Smith, and I think he recognised himself, that sometimes it just runs its course in football. I think he was there 8 years. Mm-hmm. So it has been difficult, and they're going to go down, Glenn. You know Murph very well. What'll he do there? And also then move on, if you don't mind, to the challengers in the Championship.
Yeah, I think Murph will do a good job. You know, Murph's very astute about his football and about his management. And what he'll try and do next year is try and use his contacts in the game to try and bring in some probably Premiership players. You know, Dean's problem was Loughgall came up into the Premier League and he didn't invest in Premier League players, and ultimately if you have Championship players in the Premier League, you'll end up back to Championship, and that's what looks like is going to happen. So they probably didn't reinvest the way they should have. So we're sort of hoping that Darren get in there, has more time on his hands to look at the situation and bring players in. He could tap into boys who he's known Jim Gilton for a long time, he's known David Haley a long time. So players who are maybe on the periphery of those teams, he might bring them in with, who've been training with Premiership clubs for now, cut 2 or 3 years. to help out. But he can also dip into the market down south now because he knows that as well. So I would say Murphy will use a few of his contacts. In terms of the playoff, I've watched a lot of games, and you just have to look at some of the games. Bangor beating Glentoran, Limavady beating Larne. Anna United are a good side.
Ards beating Loughgall earlier in the cup.
Yeah, Ards beating Loughgall. There's teams up there who will certainly put a challenge in. As Mark alluded to, over the years we've sort of thought it might happen, and the Premiership team has always come out on top. I have a feeling this year might be a bit different, depending. Harnamouth Welders on their day at the Plantsflower, the way they play, are very much capable of beating out a good team. So if Carrick are coming there over a 2-leg, they're going to be in a match. But Limavady, again, nobody wants to go down to Limavady. Nobody wants to go to Anna and play on that pitch either. It's going to be tough for no matter who it is. And these teams have all got goal scorers, and experience. Limavady's, Stephen Looney and Parkhill. The Welders have got Michael McClelland, who's scored almost 30 goals this season. And I've got Stephen Murray, who's scored a lot of goals this year as well. So there's goals in those teams, and and Carrick have been on a run of form that hasn't been good. And if you're getting into those matches, they're going to be nervous, they're going to be apprehensive of how they go about it, and they've no momentum. So I think it'll be very tough for them.
Got to give credit to Bangor as well. Now, they haven't actually won it at this stage. I think they're 8 points clear. They're going to win it. They're going to get promoted. Glenn, yes?
Yeah, well, we'll hope so. A couple of difficult games. They go to Limavady at the weekend here, which won't be easy. But then they've a couple of home games as well to see the season in as well. So, but it's one of those ones. The other teams all have to win the 4 games to take it off Bangor, and it's like the race for the second place in the Premiership. I don't think all the teams can win all their games. So I think with Bangor's, listen, they're in a very, very good position, and I think one win will do them, in my opinion. So hopefully they can get that sealed before the end of the season.
Thanks for that, Glenn. Yes, the same for yourself. I think there's 2 points between Limavady and the Welders and Anna United. Carrick, now again, I watched them the other night and started very, very well. Scored after the 4th minute, and I thought early doors for the first 20 minutes for sure. Danny Gibson was very, very good. I've seen a lot of Carrick this year, and he's had an off season for me. I think he's a great striker. He's sort of playing wide, but he really had the bit between his teeth the other night. Now, if Carrick do have players with great experience, so I think on their day, Carrick can be good, decent, but they've had too many off days, Mark.
I think that's the big thing. We don't doubt they can be good. I expected a lot more from them this season with the signings they made as well, and it is that experience. These are guys who are used to the high pressure games and playing at clubs where they're expected to win every week. But it just hasn't materialised. And the Cliftonville game during the week was probably a good example of their season. At the start it promised a lot, and then nothing. Absolutely. It just didn't materialise at all. Everything just fizzled out. Honestly, I would be concerned for them in a playoff. I really would. And you said it again, momentum. Any championship team, they're going to be on a decent run of form in the last lot of weeks of the season. So they're going to come into it with confidence. Carrick are going to be doubting themselves. I would definitely be concerned this year.
Thank you, Mark. Just before we go, I meant to say, I don't know if you've seen, I was told you was covering the Carrick against the Cliftonville game. Eric McWoods, I haven't seen much of him. He came on as a sub.
Great goal.
Can he run? My goodness, he sliced through the middle, he pounced. He left, I don't know how many Carrick players in his wake. I mean, I was talking to Joe Gormley after the game, and what Joe's like, he's like, he's so fast. He says, I was actually running behind him, and then I thought, there's no way I'm keeping up with him. And he just went on, and what a solo goal, what a absolutely solo goal. Did you ever do any of them, Glenn?
Absolutely not. I was watching Manchester United during the week, and I watched Alanga do the exact same thing.
I was very
he run 85 yards with the ball in 9 seconds. That's frightening.
And funny, I was talking anecdotally after the game, and there was a couple of boys sort of said to me, the Carrick boys should have just taken one for the team, around when he got near the halfway line. Now that's very cynical. It's part of the game.
Sometimes you got to do it.
Sometimes you got to do it, indeed. Okay, gents, Mark and Glenn, it's been a great discussion. Thanks for having you on. It's great. Thanks for your company as always. And thank you for your company and joining us again. That's it for now. We'll see you the next time on Football Express.